This is a KMOX severe weather alert. Important information will follow.
Bill Reeker in the KMOX newsroom, and we go to meteorologist Brian Edwards now with the storms now approaching the St. Louis metro area. What do we need to be concerned about, Brian?
Well, we just had a little bit of breaking news here. A tornado warning was just issued for central St. Charles County and northern St. Louis County. That runs until there was a funnel cloud reported with that rotation.
I see that they have just extended that tornado warning.
I just saw that as well.
Until 8:45.
90 miles an hour. Confirmed tornado. Let's see here, near the Harvester area. This is by weather spotters.
We have Kevin Killeen in the studio.
Bill, we're hearing that this funnel cloud, which came through St. Charles County, is just now, or maybe since the time I walked in, crossing the Missouri River. There are reports of overturned vehicles on the Blanchette Bridge in the westbound lanes. I'm going to hurry back out into the newsroom. We will have some teams in the field to evaluate the damage, but this thing is a monster, and it's coming through.
All right. Thank you, Kevin Killeen. And Brian, our worst fears have probably come to fruition here as we track these storms.
There's a mass casualty incident at the Holiday Inn in Earth City.
There have been reports of large limbs downed in parts of the area, St. Anne and Florissant. An update here, the significant hour, so that either tells me that there's a tornado on the ground at the moment with winds that strong showing up, or it's rotating and it's producing very strong winds at the surface. So even if it's not a tornado, 80-mile-an-hour winds can do a lot of damage across the area.
But there are still fans in the park right now, and it's being reported. All people are tweeting out pictures and stuff that are in the stairwells at Busch Stadium right now.
Actually, when you've got 45,000 plus people in the stadium for these games, it's certainly a concern.
Stand by, Brian. We've got Maria Kina in the newsroom right now. And Maria, what do you have for information for us?
Bill, we just confirmed now with Jeff Lee at Lambert Airport cleaning up right now, and they're trying to determine if any damage and how much there is. The airport is officially open, though. It is not closed, but there is no flight activity.
All the way through the northern part of the metro area.
Sounds to me like we had like 3 storm tracks tonight, and all of them severe. All right, I'm going to try to make a connection with Kevin Killeen. I believe we have him now in Earth City. Are you there, Kevin?
I am on the entrance ramp to westbound 70 just off of northbound 270, and that's as close as I can get right now. I'm crawling along a line of tractor trailers going all the way on this entrance ramp. People were even driving the wrong way to get off of this entrance ramp because there is trouble ahead in Earth City. We had an unconfirmed report earlier from KMOV that there is a mass casualty incident at the Holiday Inn in Earth City. As I look from this entrance ramp down into the valley of Earth City, I don't have a clear view yet of that area, but I can see it's just dark down there. It looks like whatever happened, they lost their electricity.
Looking a little bit to the west, where this cell tracked earlier, Madison County, Illinois, on the Hartford area, report of a tornado touchdown now or about 20 minutes ago.
And right now we have Pamela Walker, the City Health Department Director, reporting on Twitter. St. Louis Fire Department rescued 5 cars in flooded roadways, affirming that the Hollywood Casino has lost its roof and is evacuating, but no casualties.
Here we're going to switch over to Allison Blood, KMOX reporter, who is on the line, I believe, with the press secretary for Mayor Slay, Maggie Crane. Allison?
No fatalities, she said, to report yet, but Maggie Crane with the mayor's office did say that there are damages at Lambert St. Louis Airport. Again, no fatalities.
No out at the airport. We've had at least 4 outbuildings that have sustained damage. No people have been hurt.
Exactly what you're talking about. They're saying at least 4 feet of water, standing water on that whole location.
And we have KMOX's Brett Bloom, who is on his way to Lambert Airport. And Brett, what are you seeing out there right now?
Right now I am heading towards the airport. I just crossed the Mississippi River here on the bridge, the canal bridge, and of course the chain of rocks. And you head into North County, and it's eerie. There's a lot of power out, and you're driving in darkness. You would have no idea if you didn't know that you were in population. And right now I'm driving along 270 westbound. You wish that a lot of people would stay home, but there are a lot of people out on the road.
Let's take a break now and come back with some calls. I understand some people want to talk to us. 436-7900. We'll be back with continuous weather coverage here on KMOX. There are now 2 stays of execution of Joseph Paul Franklin, but now the state of Missouri has filed 2 appeals. KMOX's Michael Calhoun is live at the prison in Bonne Terre.
Bill, with 2 hours until midnight, you could say that anything can happen. The staff here at the prison has said they are still preparing to move forward at 12:01 a.m. The Attorney General's office, meantime, has filed 2 appeals. Now, the first stay has to do with the drug they intend to use, pentobarbital, and secrecy surrounding how it was manufactured. The second stay is related to the prisoner's claim of incompetence. Again, 2 appeals from the Attorney General's office in relation to those. Franklin shot and killed a man at a bar mitzvah in St. Louis County in 1977 and killed as many as 20 other people across the country. There is high security here at this prison as we wait in the parking lot, but there's not much activity other than security patrols happening under the haze of the amber lights outside of the main building here. Live at the State Correctional Center in Bonne Terre, Michael Calhoun, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
Breaking news, a federal appeals court in Missouri has just lifted a stay of execution for convicted serial killer Joseph Franklin.
KMOX News Time is 5:05. Good morning, I'm Doug McKelvin. It is mostly cloudy, 38, the wind chill 30 downtown at the Arch. A federal appeals court in Missouri has upheld the execution of white supremacist serial killer Joseph Paul Franklin, restoring the state's plans to kill Franklin just hours after the execution was blocked. Michael Calhoun has just filed this report from Bonne Terre.
Many hours after the scheduled 12:01 execution time, both stays vacated by the entire 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. One involving the lethal injection drug, the other involving his claims of incompetence. There are no victims, witnesses here, and the 2 witnesses for Joseph Paul Franklin have left. At the state prison in Bonne Terre, Michael Calhoun, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
KMOX News Time, 5:32.
Last night, 2 rulings to stay from 2 federal judges, and early this morning, both overturned by the entire 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. The first had to do with the drug being used with the execution, the second with the offender's claim of incompetence. Barring a U.S. Supreme Court intervention, this would clear the way for the execution of Joseph Paul Franklin, originally scheduled to occur at 1 minute after midnight. At the state prison in Bonne Terre, Michael Calhoun, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
Breaking news, the Supreme Court a short time ago denied an apparent final appeal from serial killer Joseph Franklin. His scheduled midnight execution, delayed by a series of legal maneuvers, could still be carried out sometime today.
Joseph Franklin's death sentence for terrorizing a St. Louis County synagogue and killing a man there in 1977 was finally carried out at 6:17 this morning. KMOX's Michael Calhoun was in the press witness gallery. He joins us live now.
Debbie, it was dark with lights streaming in under the door through which we'd walked in. There were 2 levels of risers with seats. The heavy blue curtain was pulled back, and I glanced at my watch. It was 6:06. At 6:07, the lethal injection began. Franklin was alone in the chamber, a white sheet up to his neck, tubes and wires snaked out of a hole in the wall and up and under the sheet. He gulped, blinked, and his breathing slowed. There was a stillness in the gallery, the only sound the hum from the overhead vents and the squawk of a radio telling guards to open and then close the curtain and then open it again. An official in the room announced Franklin's death after the room was dark again. He had no last meal, no witnesses, and left no last statement. There were also no witnesses for the victim. Reporting live at the State Correctional Facility in Bonne Terre, Michael Calhoun, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
CBS News, I'm Frank Sedapani. A serial killer who may have murdered as many as 20 people in a killing spree decades ago has been put to death. KMOX reporter Michael Calhoun watched the execution at the state prison in Bonne Terre, Missouri.
In the viewing gallery where the state witnesses were, it was absolutely silent except for the hum of the air conditioner overhead. And there were no protests outside the correctional facility either.
Franklin targeted Jews and blacks in a string of attacks from 1977 to 1980. His victims included badly wounded Hustler magazine publisher Larry Flint.
KMOX News Time is 8:04. As you heard on CBS News, after 6 hours of delays, convicted serial killer Joseph Franklin has been put to death at the Missouri State Prison in Bonne Terre. We begin our series of reports with Brian Kelly in the KMOX newsroom.
The scheduled minute after midnight execution was originally put on hold yesterday afternoon after a circuit judge ruled that challenged...
KMOX.
Who was Joseph Paul Franklin? This is John Butler in the newsroom. In October 1977, Franklin set up a sniper post outside a Richmond Heights synagogue. He fired 5 shots into a crowd of people in a parking lot following a bar mitzvah. 42-year-old Gerald Gordon was killed. Franklin escaped. He continued his killing spree for another 3 years. When he was finally captured and brought back to St. Louis, County Prosecutor Bob McCullough got the murder conviction in 1977 that sent Franklin to death row.
He picked out 2 people in the crowd. He didn't know them. He wasn't going after anyone in particular. According to him, he wanted to kill as many Jews as he could.
63-year-old Franklin admitted to numerous killings across the country.
His thinking was very logical. He decided, for crazy reasons, of course, that I'm going to kill Jews, I'm going to kill blacks. But he knew exactly what he's doing. He didn't just go out and shoot randomly.
Prosecutor McCullough told KMOX Franklin certainly earned the punishment he received.
Tonight, some girl who's maybe 17 or 18 years old is going to be looking in her closet trying to figure out what can I put on to wear to attract men because I have to make X amount of dollars.
She's not a streetwalker. She's hidden in clubs, in hotels, exploited in ads on the web.
There are numerous internet sites that a man, a John, can go and buy a girl at any time.
Men who just want to satisfy their lust.
Some of my clients, regular clients, were law enforcement. A couple of them were judges, athletes, politicians.
Human trafficking is more profitable than drug trafficking.
You can only sell the drugs one time. With the victim, you can sell that person over and over again.
In St. Louis, there are children for sale.
These girls are victims, and I've yet to meet a girl that grew up saying, I want to be a prostitute.
Pat Bradley, President, International Crisis Aid. Bradley says there's a thriving underground trade in the St. Louis area.
What I've been told by federal law enforcement is that it's virtually in every city in America.
In fact, a Justice Department study put St. Louis in the top 20 regions for sex trafficking. International Crisis Aid recently opened its first shelter for victims in this region. The risk to these girls is so real, the location kept secret.
In here, we have 11 bedrooms set up. Each girl gets her own bedroom. We have a counseling.
Bradley gives a tour of one wing of the donated building. The home has room for nearly 24 girls. He doubts that's even scratching the surface.
If you know where to go and you check it out online, it's just page after page after page of, let's say it this way, potential victims.
But until recently, the term sex trafficking was something few people in this area had heard.
It's not like they're walking up and down the streets of St. Louis County, trying to pick up men. So a lot of people just don't see what's happening behind the scenes. So I think they don't think it's an issue.
Sergeant Adam Kavanaugh, Special Investigations Unit, St. Louis County Police, and Deputy Commander of the Missouri Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. The Johns know where to go. Kavanaugh says there's no doubt they know they're buying underage girls. The average age of victims, 13, and investigators have seen much younger, even toddlers.
It's blatantly obvious what's being advertised. Especially when a lot of them will have pictures of girls, unclothed. And the way they're worded, a lot of these people don't try and hide it. They're very obvious in what they're doing.
These children pay the price for men to have momentary pleasure.
A lot of these girls, by the time we've seen them, unfortunately have been brutally beat sometimes, raped. They're held in conditions that are not the most livable conditions. Some of them don't eat but once a day. They're held in hotel rooms and not allowed to leave unless they leave with their trafficker. So mentally, they're really beaten down.
And when the cops get too close, these traffickers pick up stakes.
One of the things the traffickers do is move victims from place to place, from city to city. Here, of course, it's easy to go back and forth across the river.
As head of Hoyleton Youth and Family Services in East St. Louis, Illinois, Cleo Terry trains police and social workers in what to spot. Terry says moving just gives pimps another measure of control over their girls.
Before long, the person doesn't even know where she is. Her world comes down to this one manager who controls everything she does from the time she gets up until the time she goes to bed.
Who are these girls and how are they trapped? In our next report. Megan Lynch, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
They need to go to jail! They killed my grandson! They need to go to jail!
This is Kevin Killeen. A crowd of about 50 protesters picketing over the police shooting that killed 25-year-old Kerry Ball Jr. It happened the night of April 24th near the Edward Jones Dome. The family says 3 witnesses claim Ball was unarmed, hands up in the air, when police shot him 25 times, including 7 rounds in the back. Police Chief Dotson says that contradicts what the officers say happened. The investigation is ongoing.
Stan the Man Musial's visitation brought out suits and ties and Cardinals team attire. There were those who saw him at Sportsman's Park and those whose grandparents saw him at Sportsman's Park.
It was really cool because we got to see Stan Musial from a close distance and not from a really far distance like in a Cardinal game.
He represented St. Louis. He was a gentleman.
Brian Schwartzy noted that his grandfather was clad in the same red jacket he wore on opening days and before World Series games.
He always said that he'll go to the opening day and then unless there's something special, then the playoffs.
Inside the basilica, a 10-second pause in front of the casket. At the western altar, bouquets of flowers on either side and a harmonica in the man's pocket.
As an officer taking them along for a ride got out to speak with a motorist that had been pulled over, Maria Chappelle-Nadal turned to fellow Senator Jamila Nasheed and asked,
"How much do you have in yours after Mr. Rex Ingfield's 25, whatever, 60, 70, 80, 90? No, I have 80.
Nothing illegal, apparently, but the tape provides an interesting look into things politicians talk about amongst themselves. It was obtained from the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department through a sunshine request filed by KMOX News, and the video can be seen in its entirety right now at KMOX.com.
Your right foot is amputated at the knee?
Yeah, about here, down here.
Halfway down the shin.
I lost my kidney.
Retired brewery worker Jim Klotz says he lost a lot when the infection he believes came from a hospital IV ravaged his body. Now his wife Mary says the public should be told what hospital infection rates are. And her reaction to the Missouri Department of Health still not releasing the numbers from 2012?
I think it's criminal. If there's a law that states that data should be available to the public, then they're breaking the law. And something should definitely be done about it. They should be called to task.
Kevin Killeen, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
Supporters argued that if Missouri gets the Boeing plant, it will be billions of dollars in constructing the plant and thousands of new jobs for the economy of the St. Louis region. The bill's sponsor is St. Louis County's Eric Schmidt.
These are long-term, good-paying, high-quality jobs. We're talking $80,000 to $100,000 a year.
But opponents argued the tax cuts to entice Boeing to expand in Missouri will hurt the state's budget and that it's unfair to give tax breaks to just one company, but not all. From the state capitol, I'm Phil Brooks, News Radio 1120. KMOX. During the House debate, a furniture dealer from south central Missouri offered another incentive for Boeing beyond the tax breaks passed by the legislature.
We need to seal this deal, and Mr. Speaker, to sweeten the deal a little bit more, Mr. Speaker, I am willing to throw in a pair of free lamps.
That was Steve Lynch. He runs a family furniture and appliance store in Pulaski County. So he'd have those two lamps to give Boeing if the company agrees to put their new plant in St. Louis. From the state capitol, I'm Phil Brooks, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
You hungry, buddy?
Augie has no eyes, but has no problem finding his food bowl. It's for cats like him that Elizabeth Frick founded 10th Life Cat Rescue.
We don't unfortunately have to go out and find those cats. They easily and readily come to us.
Like Buttercup.
She was attacked by a dog, very brutally, her leg mangled. We thought for sure we'd have to amputate.
It's taken extensive surgeries and rehab for Buttercup to land on all fours again. 10th Life relies primarily on private donations to foot the bill and a network of foster homes to provide injured, sick, and disabled cats' daily needs until they're adopted. Megan Lynch, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
A recent incident on board a Metrolink train highlights the nature of the crime, which is to take off with your cell phone, perhaps an Apple iPhone, thus the name. A man had his smartphone grabbed out of his hand, and he was beaten when he tried to get it back. Metro Security Chief Richard Zott.
One big concern that we have is cell phone theft nationwide. It's a trend that we see all over the country. It's here in St. Louis, unfortunately. 1 out of 3 robberies involve cell phones now.
Zott says extra patrols and undercover officers are being pressed into service this holiday season to try and enforce a zero-tolerance policy, but adds that overall crime on the mass transit system is relatively low. Brett Bloom, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
What happened to the money that should have been set aside for the health care and for your pensions? It went to the $1 million salaries.
Revved up by union speakers, a crowd of about 1,000 cheered as some 10 miners sat down in the street to be arrested outside Peabody headquarters. The union says Peabody deceitfully created spin-off Patriot Coal to transfer its health care obligations and then let it go into bankruptcy. Peabody spokesman Vic Schweck.
I think people who know Peabody in the community know us as a company that lives up to its obligations.
The case is now in the hands of a U.S. bankruptcy court here. Kevin Killeen, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
Mary Margaret Myers Walker decided to investigate here and went to the Costco in Manchester, and there it was, the Bible in a display.
Surrounded by a whole series of fiction books
for instance, The Adventures of Wonderland and Other Stories, Grimm's Fairy Tales.
She sent a photo of the display to KMOX.com, and she said she talked to a local manager who said the display wasn't really for works of fiction, but rather a gift display. She called corporate, who called it a computer error. Mary Margaret doesn't like either explanation, has offered to help them move the Bible, and if they don't...
I may ask all the Christians to boycott.
Bill Ricker, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
It's cold and it's almost froze. They're beer sickles.
Every beer man has his call.
How about a beer, man? You ready?
But this call was irresistible for Chris Comerford.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
I have several friends that gave me money to do that, so I was able to give him $200 for one beer.
$200 for one beer.
And I couldn't be happier.
Beerman Patrick Ferris promised to donate all of his tips from last night to the Davis family. That $200 was the biggest one, but definitely not the only one.
My second biggest tip was my regulars over there, and she gave me a $50 tip. And I've been getting a lot of, 2, 3, 5, a couple 10s, but a lot of 20s.
Ferris says the game for him was a struggle to keep from breaking down as he thought of the family and their loss. Michael Calhoun, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
This data is way better than what you see on Google Earth.
Whistleblower Jim Peterson is the former vice president of Sanborn Map Company, a Colorado firm that once had an office in Chesterfield. Peterson alerted the feds when the firm outsourced to China the production of photographic maps of Marine Corps bases in the United States and of U.S. supply lines in Iraq and Afghanistan, a project codenamed Buckeye.
Now, you want to talk about losing some sleep at night, and this is where I drew the line, was that this Buckeye data could be used to anticipate where we anticipate IEDs.
U.S. Attorney Richard Callahan says the case was prosecuted to the fullest possible extent. He says the military data shared with the Chinese turned out to be not classified, and the Department of Defense was happy with the maps made by the Chinese. One defendant, Sanborn Map Senior Vice President Robert Williams, pleaded guilty to one misdemeanor count of the theft of government property. He faces sentencing next week. Kevin Killeen, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
He did everything right through high school, got to college, got into a situation he couldn't control, and it killed him.
Andrew Jones died in May of 2010. His father, Terry, says his drug use started when he was prescribed painkillers and became addicted. That led to his use of heroin. The Jones have told Andrew's story every chance they get, including taking part in a special report on KMOX several years ago. Now, Andrew's cautionary tale has hit national newsstands in a feature in Teen Vogue.
We've talked about that amongst ourselves about would Andrew want this, and we think he would.
While overdose deaths dropped in St. Louis City and County last year, experts told KMOX this summer they were seeing rising numbers in surrounding counties. Megan Lynch, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
Let's do this. First of all, you're supposed to be our partner.
Mayor Paul and developer Jim Sansone sparring over which comes first. The city issuing bonds to reimburse Sansone for buying apartment complexes to tear down and build the store, or Sansone actually buying those buildings.
There's several things that I haven't seen of yours. I can ask questions. I'm trying to do my due diligence, and I'm getting threatened with a lawsuit from you.
We're making it clear that if you don't follow the laws, we will take action.
The council defied Mayor Paul, voting 4-3 to give first-round approval to upholding the tax incentive agreement. Michael Calhoun, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
We need to get to the bottom of it, and then we can't get to the bottom of it if we don't give it to the proper people and start talking about it.
Councilman Gary Voss says he can't divulge what sorts of files were encrypted then erased, but a sunshine request filed by KMOX News on October 15th and then on October 21st for some of the city manager's emails resulted in the reply that those emails don't exist. Councilman Voss says it's been handed over to the Highway Patrol to investigate.
Somebody went in there. Legally, they couldn't do it. They came into our building, which is the city hall, twice at odd hours and went into that system.
And Voss is unhappy with some of his fellow council members who he says are dragging their feet on this. Michael Calhoun, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
Banging his plastic gavel in the mock courtroom he had set up outside the county building, Lee Griffin explained why he's calling for random drug testing of judges.
We're not trying to put no labels on nobody, but what are we hiding for? These are our kids. These are our future.
A mind full of dope can't cope.
As KMOX reported, St. Clair County Associate Circuit Judge Joe Christ died of a cocaine overdose last March, and former Circuit Judge Michael Cook has pleaded guilty to federal drug and weapons charges. Brett Bloom, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
This is Kevin Killeen. The Bon Terre restaurant that prepares the last meals for Missouri's death row inmates is the Crossroads Steakhouse and Lounge.
We are known for the best steaks in town, and we've been known that for 17 years.
Manager Monica Marie Jenkins says most last meals consist of steak and lobster with baked potatoes, salad, and a wide variety of desserts.
We do our gourmet carrot cake, and we do an Oreo brownie delight. And then as well, we do a granny apple caramel pie with vanilla ice cream, topped with whipped cream and a homemade cinnamon sugar.
Missouri's most recent death row case, serial killer Joseph Paul Franklin declined his last meal option and went out on an empty stomach. Kevin Killeen, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
Nobody in here that you.
An employee at the Belleville Denny's stopped us at the door, but police were glad to talk about the confrontation. The department says on New Year's Day, 4 detectives out of uniform but wearing their badges were eating breakfast when manager Michael Rice asked them to leave or put their guns in their vehicle. As they were leaving, the general manager, Michael Van, corrected the manager, said it was fine for them to stay, but the officer said it would be too awkward and they left. The reaction from diners?
It's not an issue with me. I mean, as long as they're not like waving it around like they're going to shoot somebody, then I feel safe. I don't feel threatened.
I think it's all right if they have their weapon on them.
What's wrong with the police walking into a place?
Maybe at the phone number.
Denny's corporate calls it a misunderstanding. Michael Calhoun, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
If you like a good steak or juicy hamburger, it'll cost you more of this. Senior market analyst Arlen Sutterman with Water Street Solutions says 2013 could shape up to be an expensive year for beef.
We are seeing the available supply of slaughter-ready cattle now declining on nearly a weekly basis.
Experts are blaming the beef spike on last summer's drought that forced many cattle farmers to slaughter their herds because feed costs were too high, and on a rising middle class in Asia who want beef for dinner. Kevin Killeen, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
Steve Schnelly runs full tilt toward the base. The thing is, Steve is blind, and that beeping you hear is the ball. This is beep ball.
The biggest difference is that the pitcher is on your team. The pitcher is trying to get you to hit that ball. Because if he wasn't, then blind guys wouldn't have a chance.
If you think standing at home plate listening for a ball is intimidating, think about being an outfielder.
I usually fade back and gauge the speed, and then I just kind of dive, or I'll, try to create a wall with my body and lay down on the ground and let it hit me.
The rules for beep ball are a little different, but for the players, it's a chance at competition and camaraderie.
I love it. I'll tell you what, I can just stand in this outfield and just enjoy the fact that we are out in the summer and just enjoying, something that everybody else gets to play, a sport.
Megan Lynch, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
I'm Michael Calhoun. On the Washington Avenue sidewalk next to a ribbon of police tape, Eonjay Lowry's frozen fingers pulled up a text message from her daughter.
Lord, help me. That's all she said, just Lord, help me. And then she sent back and said, they're shooting in the building, and she was up under the desk.
Across the street inside an office, people heard the sirens and then looked out the windows to see the stretcher with the victim.
It didn't look bad, and I remember being told by a few people it looked like he was moving.
Will Pash also saw the suspect wheeled out surrounded by police officers. He also saw SWAT team members through the windows of the building combing and going up floor by floor.
The green Dodge Dakota still has its motor running, and the rear tires are still turning slowly in reverse as it's wedged in between the burglar bars at the front door of Sam Light Loans. Ronnie Light owns this business.
You see that I've got a bunch of gates up here and thought that would maybe stop it. Evidently, this particular time it did work because it doesn't look like anything was taken.
The truck's owner tells me that it was stolen from in front of his apartment building at West Florissant and Tree. He says it was followed by a red vehicle that apparently the getaway vehicle. At Olive and Jefferson, Brian Kelly, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
These activities have a long-term lasting effect.
That's Police Chief Sam Dotson addressing his officers at a special on-site roll call in the Tower Grove South neighborhood this morning, later telling reporters.
And we're going to focus in the Tower Grove neighborhoods, in the Shaw neighborhood, and part of Graveway Park for the next 2 weeks. As we looked around the city, we saw that we were seeing an increase in a variety of crimes.
One of which, car break-ins, has directly impacted Tower Grove South resident Bethany Miller twice in the past few months. She personally thanked Dotson for the stepped-up patrols.
I'm thankful that they are doing it. It's going to be nice to see a good presence over here because we do have a lot of great neighbors.
This particular hotspot patrol will also take in parts of the Shaw and Gravois Park neighborhoods.
The 30,000-member strong Bosnian community in South St. Louis has taken grave notice of this week's murder of Haris Govic. Sukrija Djiđović is the founder and publisher of the Bosnian paper Saba.
It seems to me that people will start to move and leave this town.
Because of the shooting?
Because of shooting, absolutely.
Djiđovic's paper is read by Bosnians around the world, and he says before the shooting he was thinking of writing an article encouraging more Bosnians to move to St. Louis.
I'm afraid to write such an article after all of this, but is
after the shooting?
After the shooting, because it's not easy to hide such a thing.
Kevin Killeen, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
Getting addicts to turn on their dealers and warning teens that abusing heroin could lead to a trip to the morgue have apparently had an impact.
This time last year, we had 76 deaths related to heroin. And so far this year, there's been a 20% decrease, and we're at 56, which is still way too many.
St. Louis County Police Chief Tim Fitch. At the height of the problem in 2010, 91 people in the county died of a heroin overdose. The average age is between 19 and 25. Today, Fitch says the average age for overdose victims is between 40 and 45, addicts who have likely been abusing the drug for years. Yet Fitch is quick to add there's still great risk to young people, which is why the educational effort is now being expanded from high schools to middle schools. Megan Lynch, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
A recent incident on board a Metrolink train highlights the nature of the crime, which is to take off with your cell phone, perhaps an Apple iPhone, thus the name. A man had his smartphone grabbed out of his hand and he was beaten when he tried to get it back. Metro Security Chief Richard Zott.
One big concern that we have is cell phone theft nationwide. It's a trend that we see all over the country. It's here in St. Louis, unfortunately. 1 out of 3 robberies involve cell phones now.
Zott says extra patrols and undercover officers are being pressed into service this holiday season to try and enforce a zero-tolerance policy, but adds that overall crime on the mass transit system is relatively low. Brett Bloom, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
Speaking through tears and an interpreter, Yen Win told the judge, "I have no family now, and I still don't know why he," meaning Alex Murphy, "hit my husband." After the sentencing, Yen, through an interpreter, made a plea for peace.
For the people outside here, I wish that they could live friendly, no harm to each others, and it's a safe place to live outside.
The prosecutor told the judge the crime was not only a tragedy for the Wins, but shook the entire Dutchtown neighborhood to the core. Murphy's attorney maintains he's innocent and will appeal. Brian Kelly, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
The girl's story was just the latest shooting Police Chief Dotson talked about at a gun violence church rally in North St. Louis. The chief says the girl was the unintended victim of a domestic dispute.
A 4-year-old minding her own business was struck because an individual didn't have the skills, didn't have the ability to work out his domestic problems.
We are tired.
And James Clark of Better Family Life says there are simply too many kids with guns running around.
We have come to understand that more carry guns than carry wallets.
Kevin Killeen, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
4 victims lined inside the office. 2 are males and 2 are females.
St. Louis Police Captain Michael Sack describing the scene at the AK Home Healthcare, a business located inside the Cherokee Place Business Incubator.
Review of the video from the building, the surveillance video. We've determined that this is going to be a murder-suicide.
And late last night, police finally identified the victims, 44-year-old Condra Muse, 29-year-old Saeed Abdullah, and 54-year-old Bernice Solomon Red, all employees. The suspected shooter, 59-year-old Ahmed Darir, was the owner of the business. In watching surveillance video, police are convinced that it was Darir who shot the employees. Bill Ricker, News Radio 1120. KMOX.
This is Kevin Killeen. The bad news about the shootings at the business incubator reached Mayor Slay in Clayton, where he was attending a seminar on city-county cooperation to help new businesses. The mayor quickly got up and was in the hallway talking on the phone.
We're in close contact with the police. They're looking at this. Every indication is that the victims and the assailant knew each other.
These 4 killings come in the same week that some 17 people were shot in the city in a single night. Kevin Killeen, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
Partly cloudy, 41 downtown at the Arch. I'm Doug McKelvin. 2 big airlines expected to merge, creating the biggest possible airline in the world. Brett Bloom's looking into how that could affect Lambert and your travels as well.
Is Missouri close to shedding its image as the puppy mill capital? I'm Megan Lynch with details.
Hey, not bad today. Sunshine with some clouds and a high of 54. The complete forecast coming up in 10 minutes. And the Blues finally get it back on track. Tom Ackerman will have sports in 15 minutes for you here on Total Information AM.
The voice of St. Louis. News Radio 1120 KMOX. KMOX HD St. Louis. And 102.5 KEZK HD3 St. Louis.
CBS News, I'm Frank Sedetani. He was the feel-good. S&P futures are down 5.5 points. This is CBS News.
KMOX News Time is 6:04. I'm Debbie Monterey, and the news is sponsored by Edwards Carpet.
I'm Doug McKelvin. Partly cloudy and 41 now downtown at the Arch.
Prepping for takeoff this morning, a merger that will create the world's largest air carrier. KMOX's Brett Bloom is in the KMOX newsroom with a look at what this will mean for local air travelers.
Lambert Airport Director Rhonda Homnebergy tells me she anticipates very little impact on flights in and out of St. Louis, at least initially, since there's a lack of market overlap between American and U.S. Airways.
And so for American, they serve 6 markets out of St. Louis. For U.S. Air, they serve 4 markets out of St. Louis. None of those are overlap markets, so that's a good thing.
Right now, the two airlines combined have about 60 flights a day in and out of Lambert. Brett Bloom, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
Well, one plane is at the center of controversy at the Missouri Capitol, where the state's top cop gets a grilling from a Senate committee for his decision to buy the $6 million aircraft without bids. That plane is now being used by the governor.
The harshest criticism came from Kansas City area Republican Ryan Silvey. He attacked the plane's fancy furnishings.
I was just going to ask you, when we're transporting murderers and high-risk prisoners, is it necessary for leather seats and mahogany wood?
The Highway Patrol Superintendent responded that the new plane frees up other aircraft that is used for police work. The committee hearing started just as the governor was returning on the plane for trips to southern Missouri. From the state capitol, I'm Phil Brooks, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
If you're listening to us in the car right now, you might want to fasten your seatbelt. State Senator Joe Keaveney is trying for a 4th straight year to raise the fines for people caught not wearing seatbelts from $10 to $50.
I'm not trying to raise revenue with it. I'm just trying to, for a teenager, that extra $40 is probably a lot of money. So we're just trying to get their attention, buckle up.
Keaveney said that his measure was well received during a hearing Wednesday, and the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee is pledging to send it on to the full Senate.
2 years ago, images of matted and diseased dogs in tiny wire cages helped spur changes in Missouri law.
Dog breeders were asked to sit up and heed new commands about how they manage their kennels. In a KMOX follow-up, Megan Lynch asked whether it's helping the state shed its image as the puppy mill capital.
More than half of the commercial dog breeders in the state of Missouri have closed up shop. Bob Baker, executive director of the Missouri Alliance for Animal Legislation, says many that remain have cut down on the number of dogs they own to comply. Baker credits stepped-up prosecution by the Attorney General for putting the worst offenders out of business, and he tells KMOX there have been significant changes in the Department of Agriculture with a tripling of inspectors.
They can always have more inspections and more follow-up and oversight. However, we have seen a dramatic increase.
Breeders say the new rules have hurt the industry and have filed suit. Megan Lynch, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
You can get more on this story on KMOX.com.
Miners arrested after a sit-down protest at Peabody Energy headquarters. That story straight ahead. KMOX News Time, 6:07.
Hey, Cardinals fans, this is Kevin Wheeler. I'm down here in Jupiter so that I can...
Partly cloudy, 41 downtown at the Arch at 6:09 as the news continues. 10 union miners arrested at a sit-down protest at Peabody Energy headquarters here. And now aging miners are talking about their health care problems they believe the coal giant is trying to avoid paying for.
What happened to the money that should have been set aside for the health care and for your pensions? It went to the $1 million salaries.
Angry speeches from the United Mine Workers of America, and in the crowd, retired Peabody miner John Hubble of Indiana says he has reason to be angry. His health care was transferred to Patriot Coal, and it went bankrupt.
I've got degenerative disc disease in my back, and they just last month took my pain medication away from me.
Who did?
Peabody.
Peabody spokesman Vic Schweck.
I think people who know Peabody in the community know us as a company that lives up to its obligations.
The miners' health care claims are now before a U.S. bankruptcy court here. Kevin Killeen, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
The St. Louis Cardinals will make what they call a major tenant announcement this afternoon regarding Ballpark Village. All indications are that it will be a PBR Cowboy Bar, standing for Professional Bull Riding.
KMOX traffic and weather together. Now, this update from KMOX Airborne 1.
Well, we're in pretty good shape to start it off this morning around most of the area. However, if you are out in the Opals County so far, where else are we looking at delays or any troubles yet this morning, Scott?
Well, big delays further south near Valley Mines, and overnight they're in the process of moving that out of the way. I'm Scott Mercado in Airborne 2.
Breezy and mild today, sun mixing with some clouds, a high getting up to 54, then rather cloudy tonight, the low down to For a complete and detailed forecast, go to KMOX.com/weather. I'm meteorologist Steve DeVore, the voice of St. Louis, KMOX.
Partly cloudy and 41 now downtown at the Arch.
I'm Tom Ackerman at the KMOX Sports Desk. Why not Detroit? That's where the Blues found a spark, picked up a win in overtime. We'll have sports in 3 minutes.
The news continues on KMOX. It is 6:12, nearly 3 dozen arrests and no more bloodshed. That's the result of the first week of hotspot policing in North St. Louis's troubled College Hill neighborhood.
This is Brian Kelly in the newsroom. And the week before police flooded the neighborhood with 80 officers operating out of a mobile command post, there were 4 shootings, including 3 murders. But the officers aren't taking all the credit for the turnaround. Some of that is going to the residents who, after being reminded about the Crime Stoppers hotline, are calling in more anonymous tips.
They got information from the police department. They were handing out flyers. They were going door to door. So it was impressive to have them out there and bringing awareness to the program and to the crime in the area.
Crime Stoppers Executive Director Elisa Pashota says it's important that residents of crime-ridden neighborhoods know they can tip off police without putting their own lives in danger. Live in the newsroom, Brian Kelly, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
This is John Butler. A body in a ditch discovered by a jogger on Beltline Road in Collinsville last night. Police Major Tom Capitelli says the man was fully clothed and lying face down.
We have tentatively identified the victim. We're not releasing the name until we're confident. We have no suspects, nor do we have a manner or cause of death at this time yet.
Should daylight saving time become permanent in Missouri? Northwest Missouri Republican Representative Dallas Johnson thinks so.
When 20 states in this country join the Daylight Savings Elimination Pact, we will switch to daylight savings for the last time, and then daylight savings will become the new Central Standard Time.
He says it would help businesses, especially outdoor businesses. Currently, there are no states that have made daylight saving time permanent, but 2 states, Arizona and Hawaii, have eliminated it.
I'm Michael Calhoun. Sunset Hills is the latest community in St. Louis County to consider what to do with all of its deer. Sharpshooting, bow hunting, sterilization are all on the table, but no decisions will be made until a survey of the population is complete.
From the KMOX Heisey Advisory Group Business Desk, financial security in any economy. New foreclosure statistics out today show if you live in Illinois, it'll take the bank more than twice as long to foreclose on your home than if you live in Missouri. On average in Illinois, 697 days compared to 229 in Missouri.
6:14 now on The Voice of St. Louis.
KMOX News Time is 6:15. Tom Ackerman joins us in Studio B. And Blues Nation last night, Tom Ackerman letting out a whoop and then a sigh of relief. Or maybe in the reverse order, I'm not sure.
No, totally. Their rookie goaltender, Jake Allen, made his first NHL start. He rallied after falling behind 2-0. There's one sigh of relief. The Blues and Red Wings went into overtime. Chris Kerber and Kelly Chase had the call in KMOX.
Save, Steve! They score! You can bring out the Zamboni! The Blues have won in overtime in Detroit as Alex Steen puts in a rebound created on a hard play by Jackman. The Blues have won tonight.
That snaps a 5-game losing skid for them. It's been a rough stretch for the Blues. They win at 4-3 in overtime in Detroit. SEC road games have been tough to come by for Missouri. They couldn't get a win until last night, and they walloped Mississippi State. 78-36. Illinois won at home over Purdue, 79-59. Our Cardinals coverage in Jupiter, Florida, sponsored by Our Town Roofing and Contracting. We are your hometown roofer. Kevin Wheeler standing by at Roger Dean Stadium.
Tom, the Cardinals need to find a new starting pitcher in the absence of Chris Carpenter, but they also need to find another vocal presence in the clubhouse, somebody who can authoritatively lay down the law when necessary, and that's something that Mike Matheny spoke about yesterday.
But leadership has a lot of different forms, but there is no question, and we've talked about it as a group and individually, that There are some things that Carp was not afraid to stand up and say, that we've got to have other guys in that clubhouse, because I can stand up here and talk until I'm purple, and eventually I'm going to sound like a drum. And we certainly have to have some guys in that clubhouse that are not afraid to speak up.
Reporting from Roger Dean Stadium in Jupiter, Florida, Kevin Wheeler, KMOX Sports.
And with reports at 15 and 45 past the hour, I'm Tom Ackerman on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
When you leave a job, you want to take everything that's yours.
Traffic and weather update in just about 60 seconds, but it's 6:19. Let's chat with Steve Potusk of MarketWatch. The report is sponsored by Purcell and Amon Elder Law Attorneys. Looks like home foreclosures are finally heading in the proper direction.
You got that right, Doug. The number of U.S. properties with foreclosure filings fell 28% in January from a year ago. In Missouri, foreclosure activity was down 31%. In Illinois, it fell a more modest 2%. Merger news, not helping stock futures. S&P futures down 6, NASDAQ down 11, Dow futures are down 64 points. For more business news, go to KMOX.com. I'm Steve Potusk for MarketWatch.com.
Not a bad start to the day. Hopefully that's the case on the roads. We'll get the weather update in just a second, but Captain Roger Brand is in Airborne 1.
Well, hopefully that's the case, Debbie. If you come across a traffic trouble spot, though, of course.
I'm Scott Mercado in Airborne 2.
Sunshine mixing with clouds today, breezy, mild, 54 the high, rather cloudy tonight, a low right at the freezing mark. Turning out partly sunny, colder tomorrow, breezy in the afternoon and a high of 37. Currently it's partly cloudy and 41 downtown at the Arch.
The news continues on KMOX at 6:22.
Pistorius is going to have to do something brilliant. Inside him, Shirley goes down. Here comes Pistorius. He'll still win it. He'll still win it at 11.18.
Oscar Pistorius, the Olympic sprinter and double amputee known as Blade Runner, is under arrest after a woman was shot dead in his home in South Africa. Reporter Sarah Carter is in Johannesburg.
A few of Oscar's friends who spoke off the record, they say that they believe Oscar mistook his girlfriend for an intruder. She was shot 4 times in the head and the arm.
More positive news, Olympic news here.
I'm Michael Calhoun. Swimming's biggest stars could have to swim through St. Louis to get to the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. St. Louis, one of 5 finalists to hold the Olympic swimming trials at the Edward Jones Dome.
This is Fred Bottomer. Parents are being warned to be on the lookout for a strange drink combination that some in Hollywood are abusing, called Scissorp. Justin Bieber's been photographed with the drink but denies using it. Scissorp's a combination of cough medicine with codeine mixed with fruit-flavored soda and a Jolly Rancher. Julie Weber at the Missouri Poison Center says it can give a serious narcotic high that could be dangerous. Fred Bottomer, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
I'm Bill Reeker. Law enforcement is learning much more about how to handle an active shooter situation. St. Louis County Police Chief Tim Fitch, along with chiefs and sheriffs around the nation, attended a forum on the topic in Washington, D.C.
And the decade-long feud between St. Stanislaus Kostka Church and the Archdiocese of St. Louis is over. That story is coming up.
Total Information AM on KMOX.
There is a place that is truly
where St. Louis listens. From the Classic Airfare Studios, this is KMOX.
Well, that feud between St. Stanislaus Kostka and the Archdiocese of St. Louis is over. We've got the story in 5 minutes. It's 6:25.
The Osgood File, sponsored in part by Sage. The Osgood File. This is Charles Osgood on the CBS Radio Network.
6:28 now on Total Information AM.
KMOX News Time is now 6:30. I'm Debbie Monterey, and the news is sponsored by Golden Oak Lending.
I'm Doug McKelvin, partly cloudy, 41 downtown at the Arch. It's a Valentine's Day murder in South Africa, and you'll find out what that's all about in less than 60 seconds.
Let's find out right now how your ride in is looking. Captain Roger Brand's in Airborne 1.
Well, if you're on eastbound 64, it's doing okay from 94.
Pass. I'm Scott Mercado in Airborne 2.
Take a look at that KMOX forecast. Sunshine mixing with clouds today. Breezy, mild, a high 54. Rather cloudy tonight, low 32, turning out partly, and 41 downtown at the Arch. At 6:31 here on The Voice of St. Louis.
CBS News Update, I'm Dave Barrett. He captivated fans who watched him run on the CBS News Update. I'm Dave Barrett.
KMOX News Time is 6:32. Earlier this week, they watched as their mother was stabbed to death by her ex-boyfriend in their Jennings home. This morning, a clinical psychologist talks about what it'll take for the 8 and 9-year-old boys to deal with that tragedy.
Barnes Jewish Hospital's Dr. Randy Mozender tells KMOX it's vital that those children and others who experience such an ordeal get professional help. She says it's important that the adults who talk with the children let the children dictate what they want to talk about.
Not to force too much information on them that they may not want.
but also to reassure them as of their safety and to let them know that whatever they feel is okay.
Lozender says young children who witness such a horror will never forget it, but hopefully they'll get the help they need to live as normal a life as possible.
All right, I got a whole bunch of people shot out here, no rescue. Confirm that the command post is on the south side of the theater.
Even though a mass shooting incident is often over before police arrive, police are learning new techniques.
And we basically tell our officers, expect a fight. If you get there and this is still going on, expect to have a fight.
St. Louis County Police Chief Tim Fitch attended a forum on the topic in Washington, D.C., along with chiefs from around the nation. The message to schools, says Chief Fitch, was out with the old advice, get under desks and lock doors. Now,
get out of the building, get out the windows, however you can get out of the scene.
And if that's not possible,
techniques such as throwing trash cans at the assailant, throwing chairs, throwing backpacks, trying to distract the shooter.
Because of the Aurora, Colorado theater shootings, he says police around the country are beginning to carry trauma kits because EMS personnel won't go into an active shooter situation. Bill Breaker, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
You can read more on what the chief learned right now at KMOX.com.
You don't often hear Republicans giving President Obama credit for improving the economy, but Missouri Senator Roy Blunt says the president has been the greatest in history at spurring gun and ammunition sales.
Guns and ammunition are selling at a rate that I think exceeds anything in past years.
And as gun control discussions continue in Washington, Blunt says he'd like to see more mental health information included in background checks.
More information about people who have had mental health problems involving criminal or behavior or criminal behavior or concerned behavior that could become criminal behavior.
Blunt doesn't favor background checks that would impact neighbors trading shotguns or a grandfather giving a .22 to a grandson for Christmas.
Why is the bishop for many Metro East Catholics upset with the Illinois Senate? You'll find out in 60 seconds. It's 6:35 on Total Information AM.
Hi, this is Charlie Brennan. Later today, Linda Blair of The Exorcist.
7 gold.
KMOX news time is 6:36. The bishop for many Metro East Catholics upset with the timing of today's same-sex marriage vote in the Illinois Senate. KMOX religion editor Fred Bottomer begins our coverage.
The president of the Illinois State Senate has unfortunately chosen Valentine's Day and what I would call kind of a syrupy sentimentality to promote same-sex marriage.
The head of the Springfield Catholic Diocese is Bishop Thomas Paprocki.
The bigger picture, the bigger question really is the whole issue of the attempted redefinition of marriage here. You know, marriage is an institution that was designed by God.
Fred Bottomer, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
I'm Alex Degman in Springfield. Same-sex marriage proponents view the issue as one of equality. Randy Hannig, Public Policy Director for Equality Illinois, says it's true that 80% of the nation still outlaws same-sex marriage, but that will change.
Public opinion was much different back then. Even in the last 4 to 5 years, we've seen a huge shift in public opinion.
Both Illinois chambers have a Democrat supermajority, but same-sex issues traditionally have a tougher time in the more conservative House.
Over the decade-long feud between St. Stanislaus Kostka Church and the Archdiocese of St. Louis, St. Stan's gets to keep its property, but must steer clear of holding itself as part of the Roman Catholic Church.
It changes nothing in the way we live, in the way we pray, in the way we do our quote-unquote business, that we will continue to be a happy Catholic parish.
Father Merrick Bozick of St. Stanislaus says it's a relief to put the matter to bed. A St. Louis Circuit Court judge ruled last year against the Archdiocese, which now promises to drop its appeal.
We'll have traffic and weather together coming your way in just 2 minutes. KMOX news time is 6:38.
Just $8.95. Head into Sevens every day during
3600.
KMOX traffic and weather together. Now, this update from KMOX Airborne 1.
Looking at eastbound Highway 70 right now. The sun
during the investigation. I'm Scott Mercado in Airborne 2.
Let's get a look at our forecast on this Valentine's Day as we head towards the weekend. Our meteorologist this morning is Dean DeVore.
Good morning, Debbie. I'm meteorologist Dean DeVore on the Voice of St. Louis, KMOX.
I'm Tom Ackerman at the KMOX Sports Desk. What a debut for Blues goaltender Jake Allen. The rookie gets the win. We'll tell you about it in 2 minutes.
Looks like we've got a merger between American Airlines and U.S. Airways. That story coming up in about 5 minutes. Right now at 6:45, here's our sports director, Tom Ackerman.
Doug, the Blues get it done in Detroit.
Jackman shoots, save, Steve, they score!
78-36. First SEC road win for the Tigers. Illinois knocks off Purdue 79-59 in Champaign. I'm Tom Ackerman on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
KMOX News Time is 6:48.
TV Guide's Matt Roush joins us now for some entertainment buzz, and I always like to say that Matt watches the terrible television, so you don't have to. There is TV Guide's Matt Roush joining us on Total Information AM.
Right now, let's get you caught up.
I'm Scott Mercado in Airborne 2.
Sunshine mixing with clouds today. Breezy, mild, 54 the high. Rather cloudy tonight, a low 32. Then turning out partly sunny and colder tomorrow. Breezy in the afternoon with a high of 37. It's partly cloudy and 41 downtown at the Arch.
The news continues on KMOX. It is 6:51. The CEOs for American Airlines and United Airways coming together this morning to announce the latest round in a series of mega airline mergers. But as CBS's Susan McGinnis reports, it could mean higher fares for consumers.
If the deal flies, the world's four biggest airlines would control nearly 70% of all air traffic. Experts say ticket prices could take off as a result.
What will the impact be on St. Louis's Lambert Airport? KMOX's Brett Bloom's in the newsroom with a quick overview.
Lambert Airport Director Rhonda Hondenbergy says even though American currently serves 6 markets locally, while U.S. Airways connects to 4 other cities, there's no overlap between them, so expect little initial impact.
You do have to look on a longer-term view what the overall strategy of the airline will be.
Much more on that at the top of the hour.
This is John Butler live in the newsroom. An off-duty police officer out for a jog last night came across a man's body in a drainage ditch on Beltline Road in Collinsville. Cause of death suspicious. Identification being withheld at this time. Revved up by union speakers, a crowd of 1,000 United Mine workers cheered as some 10 miners were arrested outside Peabody headquarters in downtown St. Louis. Union claims the coal giant conspired to evade its health care obligations to aging miners. We'll tell you some of their stories this morning.
All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say no.
Republicans shouting down Democrats on voter ID legislation. The measure was approved by the Missouri House late Wednesday. It needs one more vote before it moves to the Senate. If it clears both houses, it will be up to the voters to approve a constitutional amendment.
I'm Megan Lynch. Images of matted and diseased dogs in tiny wire cages helped force changes in Missouri dog breeding laws nearly 2 years ago. What's happened since? Critics say it's hurt the industry, but animal welfare advocates say it's cleaning up the image of the puppy mill capital.
6:53 now on Total Information AM.
News, traffic, weather, sports, business. Always KMOX.
We'll get your birthdays in just a minute here, but let's get you updated on business news sponsored by Stifel Nicolaus. Anheuser-Busch InBev making changes to the terms of its proposed $20 billion purchase of Mexican brewer Grupo Modelo in an attempt to push through a deal that federal regulators say would kill competition. Bud and Corona control about 46% of annual U.S. sales. World stock markets moved cautiously higher Thursday despite some downbeat news from Europe's 2 biggest economies. Official figures showed Germany's economy shrank in the fourth quarter of 2012, while economic growth ground to a halt in France. 4 people close to the situation say American Airlines and U.S. Airways have agreed to a merger that'll create the world's biggest airline. We'll continue to cover that story for you all morning. The number of U.S. homes entering foreclosure fell in January. Foreclosure listing firm Realty Track says the 11% drop from December was the result of state laws aimed at stemming foreclosures that went into effect in California at the beginning of the year. And Whole Foods is announcing that it will open that $70 million City Walk apartment development and new Whole Foods store in the Central West End without giving an agreement that the unions here had hoped for.
It's my birthday!
Happy birthday, of course!
Hey! Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, you!
Well, here it is, Valentine's Day. And celebrating, a fellow who used to be on this radio station every once in a while, Hugh Downs. He's 92 today. Magician Teller of Penn and Teller fame is 65, and Rob Thomas of Matchbox 20 is 41.
Local celebrity birthdays include a happy 13th to Jared Westrick from his 7th grade PSR class. Happy 4th to Libby O'Donnell from Grandma and Poppy. Maggie Moran, happy 17th from Grandpa Terry and G. Jeannie. Marcella Heidi, formerly of New Baden, turns 103 today and is listening this morning. And happy birthday to our very own sales guru, Joe Donnellan.
This is the best birthday ever.
KMOX News Time is 6:56. So, Debbie, you remember we had the story the other day out of, I think it was Montana, about the zombie warnings that were being broadcasted. Well, it's happened in California, Michigan, Montana, and New Mexico.
And not everyone's amused.
No, the Federal Communications Commission, who have absolutely no sense of humor at all when it comes to things like this. They're saying to the stations, well, you probably ought to reset your passwords and take, what do you want to bet for a lot of those stations? The password is password.
Or maybe password 1.
That would be a good one, too. Or 1 password 1.
Or 1, 2, 3, 4.
I guess the moral of the story is for anybody, make sure you have a password that nobody else is going to guess. Otherwise, you might have a zombie warning showing up on your broadcast station. So.
If someone's tweeting out a zombie warning on your account, change your password. Let's see. I don't know if there is a zombie outbreak happening on the roadways or what the issues may be. So that's why we have our very own Captain Roger Brand joining us from Airborne 1.
Yeah, that new show, The Driving Dead, everything's in pretty good shape around the area, really, for the most part, Debbie. Just volume building, and of course we have a lot of that. The sun's popping up, and we're already bogged down on eastbound Highway 70, backups west of 94 to the Blanchette Bridge. Westbound 270 through Madison and North St. Louis counties, though, still on the go. No delays there. 64 now, the sun's starting to get in your eyes. Look for a little slowdown at Clarkson, but otherwise a trouble-free front east of there. And we had a minor accident on the ramp south 270 to west 64. What about other stuff, Scott?
Well, no slowdowns on eastbound 54 from Eureka all the way to Hampton and beyond to the 55 merge. Westbound 5570 slow to the Poplar right now from about the King Split. The King Bridge backed up past the railroad overpass. Northbound 270 slow from Doherty Ferry to Manchester Road, and northbound 55 on the go from Arnold to 255. I'm Scott Percano in Airborne 2.
Partly cloudy, 41 downtown at the Arch. I'm Doug McKelvin. 2 big airlines coming together to create the largest in the world. How will it affect you the next time you fly out of Lambert?
I'm Debbie Monterey.
Whole Foods Market has officially signed a lease to open a store in the city. I'm Michael Calhoun with the latest.
Breezy, mild with a high of 54. The complete forecast in 10 minutes.
I'm Tom Ackerman. What a win for the Blues in Detroit. And the Cardinals call a press conference. We are anticipating contract extensions for not only Mike Matheny, but John Mozeliak. And we'll have more in sports in 15 minutes.
What's the latest on that plant across the river that wants to process Asian carp? We'll have an update.
And evidence in crime-ridden neighborhoods. Silence is golden. Anonymous tips can help solve crimes. Brian Kelly has the live update after CBS at 7.
Your home for blues hockey. News Radio 1120 KMOX. KMOX HD St. Louis. And 102.5 KEZK HD3 St. Louis.
Olympic star charged with murder.
This isn't so much a whodunit as a what happened.